On August 1st, 2022, Etsy launched the Purchase Protection Program, intended to help give customers refunds when there is an issue with shipping or when an item doesn't match the listing description. Do your orders meet the eligibility requirements for the protection program? Is it even relevant for print-on-demand sellers? I'm going to answer those questions, so stick around and let's dive into the Etsy Purchase Protection Program. All right, so the Etsy Purchase Protection Program went into effect on August 1st of 2022. And what I want to do in this video is really just outline what the Purchase Protection Program is, and then we'll talk about how it might apply or not apply to us as print-on-demand sellers. So in the Etsy Seller Handbook, this is the article that they linked to from your seller dashboard and in an email that they sent us at least once in the last couple months. Link to this article in the description. They provide a section near the top that says what's new, and they outline what the program applies to. So they say with the new program for qualifying orders up to $250, including shipping and taxes, Etsy will refund buyers and you, the seller, will keep your earnings if a buyer never receives their package, so if it was lost in transit, or if it arrived damaged for the first instance per calendar year. So that one, the second one, they'll only do one time per year. And so let's just stop for a second. This is Etsy saying, hey, we know that shipping issues aren't necessarily the fault of the seller, so we're going to try and step in and let the seller keep their revenue and their profit from the order and refund the buyer if the shipping was the actual problem. So at face value, sounds pretty good, right? They're wanting to protect the seller a little bit while keeping customers happy and refunding them when they have a shipping-related problem with their order. And then the article goes on to talk about the eligibility for the Purchase Protection Program. But pump the brakes for a second. There is a third scenario that qualifies potentially for the Purchase Protection Program. It's just not super clearly outlined here. But if you hop over to the buyer policy page, again, link in description, there is another explanation of what the Purchase Protection Program is. And this resource more clearly outlines 3 scenarios that might apply. So it explains if an order does not meet the following expectations, you may receive a refund. So number 1, items are delivered and arrive when expected. So that's the order never delivered one. Number 2, items arrive undamaged. So if your item arrives damaged, we already knew that one. But number 3, items match the listing description. So items received should not be significantly different from the listing description or photos. We may ask the buyer to provide us with a documentation to demonstrate that the item is significantly different, and then they go on to list examples. So this scenario was not super clearly outlined on the seller handbook page, but this scenario of an item that does not match the listing description also falls under the Etsy Purchase Protection Program if the customer claims that what they received does not match the listing. All right, now let's go to a third page. It's the third one, right? Yeah, I think this is the third one already that we've had to go to get the full breakdown of the eligibility criteria so that you can know if an order might actually be covered by the Purchase Protection Program. So here we go, order eligibility requirements, and we have multiple here. So under A, we have use valid tracking or where available, a shipping label purchased on Etsy. This one's pretty easy for us because all of our print-on-demand platforms do upload tracking information for an order when it's completed and it ships. So we shouldn't have any problem with that one. B, use Etsy's payment platform, Etsy Payments, where available. So there are some countries where Etsy Payments is not available yet. In the US, it is the primary checkout method for most of us. If you did select PayPal as your checkout or payment method for your shop, buyers will be directed to handle any cases through PayPal. All right, moving on to C, ship the order to the address provided on Etsy. If your buyer provides an alternate shipping address through messages, be mindful of fraud or scams. You may choose to cancel and refund the order and ask the buyer to purchase the item again with the correct shipping address. Well, this one I did not expect to be a criteria, and it's a little bit frustrating. Etsy does not provide us a way to update the shipping address once an order is placed. So whether they message you or however they contact you, there's no way for the customer to update the shipping address on an order once it's placed. There's no way for us to do it. And so Etsy is saying if you want it to still be able to use the Purchase Protection Program, you'd have to cancel the order, have the customer replace the order with the correct shipping address. And I have had customers ask for this, and we can do it usually as long as the order hasn't shipped yet. We can go to our print-on-demand platform and request an update to the shipping address. If you want your order to be covered by this program, you can't do that anymore, which that's kind of frustrating to me. All right, D, package your order carefully to avoid damage in transit. There's not much detail there, so that could be pretty subjective, but assuming most of us, especially with apparel items, we should be okay there. E is include processing times in your listing and ship your orders within those stated processing times, and you must have an estimated delivery date for a listing. This criteria might look pretty long. It's actually fairly simple. It's just taking all the information from your shipping profile. And so if your shipping profile meets the requirements that Etsy has, pretty good chance that you're going to meet this requirement. It just comes down to whether you ship the order within your stated processing time. Criteria F is fill out all of your shop policies, and they say, or they point out, it's especially important to have policies for returns, exchanges, and custom orders. Your shop policies have to comply with Etsy's policies and local laws. So you're not required to accept returns. And in fact, if you're a print-on-demand seller, I personally don't recommend it. That's a separate conversation, but you don't have to take returns as long as your shop policy is updated and clearly states what that policy is. And G, keep your shop in good standing, meaning you're not violating any of Etsy's policies. Now that one, for us, the one we might run into most frequently as print-on-demand sellers would be getting reports against listings in your shop for trademark or copyright infringement, that kind of thing. But any of Etsy's policies would be fair game for this particular criteria. All right, so after going through all the criteria, I think the only one that would apply to us on a somewhat regular basis would be that shipping address criteria, where if you change the shipping address and don't ship it to what's on the order won't qualify for it. That one definitely happens to me, so that one definitely could impact eligibility for some of my orders with this program. Before I talk about whether this is all relevant for us as print-on-demand sellers, I want to mention one other thing, and that's kind of how it appears it might be going so far and how it's actually implemented. As mentioned on the buyer policy page for this program, they call out that a qualifying case needs to be escalated to Etsy for review. They'll evaluate the claim to the best of their ability, and they may ask for additional documentation. So the key here is that the way that you have to actually request review to potentially have an order covered by the Etsy Purchase Protection Program is you have to open a case or submit a case to Etsy support. And that is not the same thing as just sending the seller a message saying, hey, I have a problem with my order. So customer would either have to go directly to Etsy to open a case without really involving you. The other scenario would be the customer messages you first and says, hey, my order never arrived or it's damaged. And then you review the order, you determine that this looks like it's eligible for the Purchase Protection Program. So then you direct them to open a case. But either way, it has to go through the Etsy case system or Etsy case process. And I've seen some comments in online forums for Etsy sellers indicating that the few sellers that have experienced this so far are noticing that Etsy seems to be closing these cases and refunding the buyer fairly quickly. In some cases, before the seller had even noticed that they had a case from the customer. But that is secondhand information. It's just what I was able to kind of find after doing a little searching around some seller forums online. I have not experienced any purchase protection cases myself for my shop yet. And that leads me to my conclusion after reviewing all of this information, as well as thinking about it from the perspective of a print-on-demand seller. At this point, based on what I see here, I will not be leveraging the Purchase Protection Program, or I won't be pushing my customers to submit a case for the Purchase Protection Program. If a customer submits one without telling me, I guess it is what it is. But I won't be sending customers in this direction. And the reason for that is, as print-on-demand sellers, we have recourse. We have solutions to offer customers when they either don't receive something or when something arrives damaged. And it does not involve any extra cost to us. And that solution is to go to your print-on-demand platform, submit a support request there, and then follow any steps they request so that you can have a reprint or a refund provided. And it's a very easy process. I'm on an order page in my Printify account where you can see right underneath each item in the order, you have a button to submit an issue. When you click on that, you have the option for tracking status, request reprint, and request refund. So if I were to request a reprint on this item, it pops open a new tab and takes me to a form to fill out. It pre-populates with the order information, the SKU number of the product. It will pull in the shipping address and you can correct it if necessary. You then just add a subject and a description, and you can attach photos from the customer if it is a damaged item. Now, I covered this whole process in my video about resolving shipping issues. I'll put a link to that in the corner and in the description. So check out that video if you want to know more about how I get all of those issues resolved for my customers without any extra out-of-pocket cost already. And so for that reason, I don't see any need for us as print-on-demand sellers to go rushing towards pushing customers into the purchase protection program if they don't receive an item or if they receive a broken item. Now, the situation where the customer is disputing that an item doesn't meet the actual description or match the description or pictures or something like that you have in your listing, that should be completely avoidable for us as print-on-demand sellers because we create the designs, we create the mock-ups, we write the listing, and we also have access to get samples if we're not sure how something's going to come out. So the only time that should really come up is if an item gets printed and there's some type of printing error where the colors just don't come out matching, the way you uploaded it or the way it's turned out before in the past for other customers. In the last 2 years of being a print-on-demand seller and having close to 6,000 orders fulfilled, the only times that something like that has come up is basically what I've already mentioned. Like if something comes out and there's a printing error or something like that, and so it clearly didn't come out the way it normally comes out, and that might fit into that scenario. But again, you can get a reprint if it came out defective or not the way it was supposed to come out. You just need to get a photo from the customer. So I hope this information was helpful, and certainly check out the links in the description to all of the resources that we looked at in this video. So I want to know what you think about this as well. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me that as print-on-demand sellers, it's not super applicable to us. If you feel differently, I want to know that too. If you think I'm missing something, please let me know. If you think I misinterpreted anything about Etsy's content about the program, so just let me know your overall thoughts in the comments. If you thought this information was helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button so YouTube can show this video to more viewers, and subscribe to the POD Insights channel so that you can be notified of future videos that I put out. Thank you to all subscribers and all viewers. I really appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.